As you would be aware, in New South Wales, the insurance companies are now pushing to change towards fluids that are approved K-class. Now, replacing mineral oil in transformers with esters can be an effective way to upgrade fire safety, slow thermal aging of the insulation, lower the environmental risk, and improve short-term overloadability of an otherwise healthy transformer. So, to explain this in greater detail, I'll now put you through to Phil, and he'll go through with a bit more detail on that.
Good day, good morning. It's a pleasure to speak to you about operating transformers with ester fluids. We hope you find the presentation useful. Themes that we'll cover include history of ester fluids, fire safety, environmental considerations, life extension, retrofilling, and condition monitoring. So in the copy of the presentation that you get, you'll please read through the disclaimer. So just some information. So the presentation makes reference to FR3 natural ester. So that's the product that we manufacture at Cargill. The presentation also makes reference to wider natural ester and synthetic esters. So, other companies also manufacture ester fluids. Natural esters are derived from soybean, rapeseed, palm oil. Many of their characteristics are similar, some of them are not. Today I'm mainly talking about soybean-based because I'm more confident and familiar with that product type. So where I reference FR3 natural ester, it's because I've got some specific test data that I can reference or a case study. Okay. So transformers are critical assets in a power network. A failure of a power transformer can cause a cascading failure. It could cause the lights to go out on a mine site. It could cause a fire, a fatality. So to facilitate a reliable performance, transformers require good insulation systems, which consist of solid insulation or paper, cellulose, and also mainly insulating fluid, alternatives being dry-type transformers. And along with mineral oil, silicon oil, natural and synthetic esters are used in transformers as a dielectric fluid. And the role of these dielectric fluids is to be an electrical insulator. They're part of the transformer cooling system, so they distribute heat from the core and the windings, which is important for the preservation of the paper insulation. When the paper's at end of life, the transformer needs to be replaced or rewound. They enhance the dielectric properties of the paper insulation, and also they are a store of diagnostic information that you can access via sampling and testing in the lab. The development of ester fluids is an interesting transformer story if you find transformers interesting. Alternatives to polychlorinated bipheноls or PCBs were needed, and PCBs were used in transformers to mitigate fire risk. PCB import to Australia was banned in 1975. Synthetic esters were developed in the 1980s, and then natural esters were developed in the 1990s. Again, the purpose was to mitigate fire risk. So FR3 was developed, which is a natural ester, was developed in the 1990s, and the name FR3 means fire-resistant third generation. Unbelievably, it's a plant-based product. Soybean is the base oil. So in chemistry, an ester is a compound that's derived from a particular type of acid, an oxo acid. It can be organic or inorganic. Natural esters are triglycerides. Glycerides are important fatty acids in nature. They comprise the bulk of animal fats and also vegetable oils. So ester fluids are vegetable oils. So ester fluids were new a generation ago. These days they're not. FR3, for instance, has been validated now in 2.5 to 3 million transformers for over 25 years. We think there are 20,000 plus retrofills now. It's been approved for use in all voltage classes of transformers, transformer types. I've seen some product, the natural ester by other manufacturers, being used in higher and higher voltage classes, so that's good as well. The test validation includes factory acceptance testing, also routine condition monitoring activities such as visual inspections, oil testing, electrical testing. And here in Australia, the transformer manufacturers use natural and synthetic esters in their transformers. I guess the challenge now as they become more popular is to educate asset managers about the operational differences, because ester fluids do in some ways behave in a different way to mineral oil. So just continuing on the theme of fire mitigation, for those ester fluid-filled transformers that you operate, the risk of fire is lower because the fire and the flash points of the ester fluids are higher than mineral oil. So the fire point of natural ester is the highest, 360 degrees Celsius. That's 200 degrees Celsius higher than mineral oil and about 45 degrees Celsius higher than synthetic ester. We've not had any reported fires of FR3, our natural ester, in 25 years of use in transformers. Ester fluids are called K-class fluids, so that's low flammability. You might have heard of that. They're approved for use by FM Global and others. IEEE C5712 defines a character code, a 4-letter character code, such as ONAN or KNAN. And the character code describes the cooling attributes of the transformer, and the first letter, either O or K, refers to the main cooling medium, which is in contact with the windings. And a K-class fluid has a fire point above 300 degrees Celsius. There's a very good document you should download from FM Global's website called Transformer Loss Prevention 5.4. And it describes how the reduced risk of fire enables reduction of building clearances, firewalls, or fire deluge systems. The image on the top right represents this. I'm sure your insurance companies have gone through this with you already. So I'll just finish off by saying, transformers are reliable machines. Transformer reliability surveys from the likes of Seagray specify that voltage class failure rates across all voltage classes are less than 1%. But in New South Wales, only a couple of months ago, a 200 MVA transformer caught fire down near to Tallawarra Power Station. So I'll move on just to some environmental considerations. If you have natural ester in a transformer, if a spill occurs, the cleanup should be easier and less expensive. FR3, for instance, 95% vegetable oil, and the remainder of the ingredients are food grade, so that's what you're cleaning up. The higher viscosity of all ester fluids means that seepage into the soil and the water table will be more slow. And what we've demonstrated, and that will help with the cleanup, what we've demonstrated with OECD test 301 is that our natural ester is readily biodegradable. Natural ester is more biodegradable than synthetic ester and also mineral oil. If it gets into waterways, we've demonstrated with our fluid that it's non-toxic to aquatic life via OECD testing. It's easier to clear from water because it forms globules and not a surface slick. And it's also, we've estimated that the production of FR3 is carbon neutral, unlike the production of synthetic and also the refining of petroleum to produce mineral oil. And I'm pretty sure other manufacturers have got similar information. Just a quick case study. This is an example of a major project in the USA using a natural ester fluid. So the Glen Canyon Dam was built in the 1950s and 60s. All of the transformers were replaced recently. Natural ester, our natural ester was used in the transformers, and the reason for this is the proximity of the transformers to the river, which is a water source, a drinking water source. If you look at the voltage class, you'll see they're pretty big transformers, 125 MVA, 345 kV, 145 kV. Also in Australia, we see ester fluids being used in transformers on the coasts of rivers. Okay. So continuing on the theme of water, now talking about life extension. So during operation, water levels can increase due to defective silica gel breathers, defective seals, also degradation of the paper produces water from the paper. In mineral oil-filled transformers, a consequence of increasing water levels can be a reduction in the breakdown voltage to levels that are deemed to be unfit for safe operation, so that affects the reliability of the transformer. So natural ester can hold 10 times more water than mineral oil. So at 20 degrees Celsius, it becomes saturated at 1,000 parts per million. And this increased saturation point is why the breakdown voltage of natural ester is more robust to water, so you achieve potentially increases in reliability. Another effect of water in a transformer is accelerated paper degradation. And the water saturation curves on the left try to explain how natural ester, also synthetic ester, can keep the paper insulation drier than mineral oil. Maybe you can see a green dot on the curves somewhere towards the right bottom of the page. So at 60-degree operating temperature, 60 parts per million of water in natural ester corresponds to approximately, we think it indicates 1% water content in the paper insulation. Under the same conditions, it's 4% water content in the paper with mineral oil. So anything above 2% during routine condition monitoring, we would give an accelerated paper degradation warning. And so a prompt would be to do filtration if the numbers are confirmed by repeat testing. So natural ester keeps the paper drier, preventing degradation of the paper, potentially extending the life of the asset. If you look at the chemical reaction on the right of the page, natural ester is a triglyceride, as I said, and it reacts with water, H2O, to produce, both are consumed in the chemical reaction, which is called hydrolysis, and the products are a diglyceride and also a fatty acid. So the fatty acid is high molecular weight. It doesn't interact with the paper insulation. It doesn't degrade the paper insulation. But this chemical reaction, hydrolysis, contributes to keeping the paper insulation dry. So it's a dual drying mechanism of the paper. And this contributes to the proposed life extension of the paper insulation and therefore the transformer. With synthetic ester, this reaction also occurs, hydrolysis. Unfortunately, one of the downsides for synthetic, which we also manufacture, is that the acids are lower molecular weight than with natural ester, and they're more corrosive to the paper. So during operation, you may need to apply filtration to mineral oil-filled transformers to reduce water and acid levels. Drier solid insulation is a consequence of using natural ester and also synthetic ester. The solid insulation in the transformer should last longer. Unless degradation means postponing replacements of transformers, that's potentially a cost saving, which balances out the increased cost of the ester fluid. A maximum water levels during operation for mineral oil are 40 parts per million. For natural ester, it's 450 parts per million, so there's a difference there, some operational differences. So we think filtration to reduce water levels with natural ester are not going to be needed throughout the life of the asset, so that's potentially another reason, another balance against the higher cost of the fluid. And also drier solid insulation, because of the natural ester, means that the loading capacity of the asset may be increased. And what we're seeing now with some of the bigger transformer manufacturers is that they're developing transformers with natural esters with a smaller footprint, but a similar MVA rating. I'll talk now about retrofilling. So during operation, you can replace mineral oil with natural and synthetic ester. So both ester types are miscible with mineral oil, so they mix. And I guess fire safety is a reason why insurance companies might be contacting you to change the fluid in some of the transformers that you operate. There are some considerations that you need to bear in mind if you're going to do a retrofill, so I'll quickly go through them. First of all, free breathing or not. So a transformer retrofilled with either a natural or a synthetic ester, we think should be sealed. So you should replace the gaskets when you do a retrofill to ensure that a seal is created. So about the voltage class, where the primary voltage is less than 69 kV, there's plenty of retrofilling experience globally, and we think the transformer's dielectric design for mineral oil should be sufficient. Where the primary is above 69 kV, we think there might be a requirement for verification of the leads in the winding assembly, and we can assist you with that if necessary. So about the age and the condition of the transformer, we'll do a visual inspection of the asset, review the dissolved gas analysis results, the furan analysis results to assess the condition of the paper, look at the electrical testing results. So a transformer, for instance, with heavily degraded paper insulation might not be a good candidate for a retrofill. There might be some complications with certain types of bushings. Look at the electrical test results. Confirm with the OEM of your on-load tap changer if you wish to do a retrofill of that. So we've got a detailed retrofilling procedure that we can share with you. Peter will go through some of this in a minute. This is pretty important. If we have a retrofill procedure, if you follow the procedure, we think you're going to be left with 3 to 5% residual mineral oil, 3 to 5% residual. So that's going to be, a lot of this will be in the paper insulation, and this will diffuse out into the bulk fluid after the retrofill. And if you're going to do a natural ester retrofill, we need less than 7% residual mineral oil in order to retain the higher fire and flash point properties of the natural ester. Synthetic ester is even more sensitive. We need less than 5% residual mineral oil. And the chart on the right shows the increasing amounts of residual mineral oil on the fire and the flash points of natural and synthetic ester. Below 300 degrees Celsius, the fluid is no longer K-class. So this is why we prefer you to consider natural ester for your on-site transformer retrofills. We manufacture natural and synthetic, but we're not convinced that you can maintain K-class status of the fluid via an on-site retrofill with synthetic ester. So after you do your retrofill, you must verify that the fluid is still K-class, so measure the fire point immediately after the retrofill, and 12 months after, get your lab just to test. Get your oil testing lab just to do an oil test, a fire point test. They can find somebody that does it for you, and if it's not a K-class fluid, then I guess you need to speak to your service provider and find out why it's not a K-class fluid.
There's a number of different scenarios. We've just taken out one, and that was for a pad-mounted network or substation transformer as far as retrofilling. This is from 500 kVA through to 7,500 kVA. Step one was to adhere to all required safety precautions, codes and regulations. Number two was to access the unit. Number three would be to ground all the equipment. Step number four would be to take oil samples. And then number five would be to drain the oil. We then replace the oil and the immersed gaskets and allow around half an hour at least for draining. Then we would flush with hot FR3, around about 5% of the fluid volume. Allow another half an hour for drip after draining. Then remove the dregs from the bottom of the transformer. We go through to 11 then, and we fill the transformer. A bottom fill would be recommended with a minimum temperature of about 40 degrees C. Top off with dry air or nitrogen to bring the headspace pressure to around about 13 to 20 kPa. Number 13 would be to install retrofill labels on the unit. 14 would be to wait preferred 24 hours to energise the unit. 15 would be to take oil samples. 16 would be to energise the unit with no load, then wait 3 hours prior to adding a load, and then connect the load. 17 would be the next day, would be to check the temperature and the pressures. 18 would be to follow maintenance schedules and procedures. And the last one would be to periodically monitor and record tank pressures and confirm tank seals.
So yeah, one of the considerations I mentioned for retrofilling was the free breathing status of the transformer. So look, many transformers are already sealed and they can be retrofilled And if you look at the top of the page, there are some examples there. So the hermetically sealed transformers, those transformers with a conservator and a silica gel breather with a bladder in the conservator. So this bladder keeps the oxygen levels in the fluid low. So that's important. Also sealed transformers with a dry air or a nitrogen headspace. And also another way to easily seal a transformer is just to attach a bidirectional pressure relief valve to the silica gel breather and reconnect. That's a low-cost way to seal a transformer. So what we definitely don't advise is use of natural ester in free-breathing transformers with or without a silica gel breather. For both natural ester and mineral oil, we want to avoid oxidation of the fluid or the oil. We know that synthetic ester, which we manufacture, is more oxidation resistant, but we advise use of a sealed system for a synthetic ester as well, because synthetic ester in a free-breathing transformer is going to have high oxygen levels. And under certain circumstances, this will lead to oxidation of the solid insulation, which is distinct from oxidation of the liquid insulation. And oxidation of the solid insulation can degrade the paper and reduce the life of the paper and therefore the asset. And also with synthetic, as I mentioned, ingress of moisture can lead to hydrolysis of the fluid, which produces a lower molecular weight acid than with natural ester, and that can also degrade the paper. I'd just like to move on to oxidation stability of ester fluids. There's a great deal of misunderstanding about the degradation of ester fluids. So like with mineral oil, oxidation of natural ester is a slow process and emergency maintenance won't be required. This is because the oxidation of the fluid, the natural ester, doesn't affect the breakdown voltage of the fluid. So if, for instance, during operation you have an FR3 filled transformer or an FR3 filled transformer, it becomes free breathing for whatever reason. First of all, oxidation will be prevented for a number of years, 5 to 10 years, because the fluid contains an oxidation inhibitor. And after the oxidation inhibitor, if it becomes depleted, what will happen is oxidation of the fluid will occur, and we would expect to see increases in acidity, viscosity of the fluid, and then dielectric dissipation factor, which is what you would monitor with your annual oil analysis program. So what we estimate is that even after 10 years of free breathing, the viscosity levels will still be acceptable, within acceptable levels according to IEEE C57147. We're definitely not going to see any solidification of the fluid in the main tank. That's not going to happen. Where we'll see solidification of the fluid is on thin layers. It's called thin layer polymerization, and that occurs over 2 weeks at ambient temperature. Also, the acids produced by FR3 oxidation are not like the corrosive low molecular weight acids produced by mineral oil, so they don't degrade the paper, they don't affect the lifespan of the asset. Natural ester doesn't produce sludge when it oxidizes, so there's no need to do filtration either to reduce acid levels. You just monitor the viscosity levels. That would be the key life management thing to do, parameter. I'll finish off with condition monitoring. There are some differences with your routine annual oil analysis program for mineral oil filled transformers. Dissolved gas analysis is still a key test, and it's a good idea to still use a 50 ml glass syringe. We have standards from IEEE to help us interpret dissolved gas analysis and other oil quality test results. Do remember, if you've got ester fluids, to include viscosity in the testing of the fluids, and also after you do a retrofill, test the fire point. So these are the standards in place for use of natural ester in transformers. I'll talk a little bit about IEEE C57155. So this is used for interpretation of dissolved gas analysis results. It was published in 2014. It will be updated in 2024. And it gives us confidence in our interpretation work for soybean-based natural esters. Is dissolved gas analysis applicable? Maybe. So dissolved gas analysis is an important test that we perform on a transformer fluid sample. whether it be mineral or ester fluid. During operation, we can identify problems that vary in their severity. So high temperature heating and arcing are a particular concern, especially if paper insulation is involved. These faults generate ethylene C2H4 and acetylene C2H2. We can use this table from IEEE C57155 to help guide our actions. The top row is soybean-based oil, that's FR3 for instance, so we have more than 4,000 records in the standard, and because of this, the confidence interval for the data is high. So if, for instance, with your annual oil analysis program, you identify, for instance, 2 parts per million of acetylene, C2H2, that would be a prompt for you to do an immediate retest if it just appeared. If the numbers keep increasing, like with mineral oil, that would be a prompt for you to do electrical testing and an internal inspection to help understand where the problem is. There is no data for rapeseed fluids, so we have a gap there. With synthetic ester, there's only 157 records in the standard, which translates into the confidence interval in the data being low. So if the acetylene levels, according to the standard, are less than 13, that's acceptable. I think that's madness. Certainly, I'd feel very uncomfortable if I had to do a condition assessment and give an acceptable condition assessment if the ppm levels are 12. And also, we see that the confidence interval is low as well for the data. So we've got Duval triangles, which are an analysis tool developed by Michel Duval from Hydro-Quebec in Canada. We can use Duval Triangle 3 for FR3. There's also one for synthetic ester. We can identify partial discharge, discharges of low energy, D1, high energy, D2, high temperature heating above 700 degrees Celsius, mid temperature heating, low temperature heating. And then we can use additional triangles 6 and 7 to help us further identify heating problems. And the questions that these additional triangles can help us with are, is paper insulation involved in the fault? And it's more serious if it is. Final page. Stray gassing is the occurrence of a situation in transformers filled with ester fluids. We identified with dissolved gas analysis. So it's gas generation from the fluid. It might be because of a fault, or it could just be heating of the fluid leading to gas generation. But it can be confusing when we do the condition assessment. And from 25 years of operational data with our natural ester, we know that it produces ethane, C2H6, and this is documented in the IEEE standard for C57155. One of the studies published in IEEE C57155 is a heating study. So it looks at the gases generated from different natural esters and also synthetic ester at different temperatures. And the table at the bottom left of the page compares and contrasts the gas generation produced by soybean-based fluids and rapeseed fluids at 250 degrees Celsius. And 250 degrees Celsius is deemed to be a low temperature heating problem, so nothing too serious. But clearly we can see that there's very different gas generation, especially in ethane and also carbon monoxide. So the problem with this excessive generation, seen with rapeseed fluids, for instance, is that it could create difficulties for DGA interpretation. So if you do have ester fluids in your transformers, when you come to take your oil samples, you really must advise the lab what type of ester fluid it is, so you get an accurate condition assessment back. All good, thank you.
Thank you.